So it's Dave Cool from Bandzoogle, but you probably know that because I have been promoting this. You might know this from the website. You might know this from the newsletter if you read it. You might know this from social media. Okay, so we are live now on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, everywhere. It's very nice. Okay, can you hear me, Dave?
Yeah, I just had a little.
Great.
Yeah, now I can see and hear you. Perfect. Hi. Hi, everyone.
Hi. So I always like for my guests to do their own intros because I think that's a more appropriate way of doing it. And I'll let you take it away, sir.
Sure. So my name's Dave Cool. That's actually my real name. And like Ariel said, I think we've known each other for at least 15 years through the industry. And I'm the Vice President of Business Development at Bandzoogle, which is a website platform for musicians. And that's just a fancy title to mean that any company, music association, music school, music marketer that wants to work with Bandzoogle, they have to go through me, basically, and I have to talk to them. So I know a lot of people in the industry because of that, and get to do fun things like this with Ariel. So that's what I do, and I work for Bandzoogle. My history in the music industry is, it's very similar to everyone else. Musician, record label, did all sorts of fun things in the music industry, and I've been at Bandzoogle now for 10 years, working for them.
Wow, it's 10 years. Okay. So websites always feel like sort of like marketing and PR. There's so many levels, and it can feel basic when you say, okay, we're going to have a conversation today about websites. I think it's anything but basic. I think that, like everything else in the industry, you have to be iterative with your website, and you have to understand what trends are, what's happening. And I know a lot of artists and musicians just sort of set it and forget it. And I go to check up on a lot of artists when we're having chats, and it feels like, oh boy, 2000 is calling. They want their website back. So I'd love it if today you could give us sort of an overview about if an artist has a website and they haven't paid a lot of attention to it, let's say in 2 years or more, maybe they set it and forget it, even with Bandzoogle, what should they be aware of? What should they think about? I think right now during the pandemic, we're all on lockdown. I think now is a really good time to focus on your website and get kind of back to your core, look at your brand. What's your best first advice, Dave?
That's a great question. And, what we're seeing since the pandemic began is increased activity on Bandzoogle, and people are, updating their sites and selling more music and merch and doing all sorts of direct-to-fan stuff, which we can get into. But, like you mentioned, like people who set it and forget it, it's common, unfortunately, but websites are really not supposed to be a static thing. Not updated as much as social media, obviously, but it should be a living thing that gets updated regularly. Your bio, your EPK, new photos, your latest music, your latest videos should all be found on your website. You shouldn't have your website there, and because if it's stale and static, and your last update was from 2 albums ago, or your holiday album from 2017, people are going to click away and be like, this person's not active anymore. It can give a really negative impression. So you should always be updating your website with all of your latest information and content. And during the pandemic, what we're finding is that there's been a lot more attention being paid to, obviously musicians have been really negatively impacted, those that perform live. And so a lot of them have essentially been forced to take care of their online business and to really focus on that. And we love seeing it. And what we're telling musicians is take the time now and put these things into place where you're selling music directly, doing maybe launching a fan subscriptions offering, getting all that set up so that when hopefully we're out of this in the near future, you get back to touring and playing gigs, and then you have that online business set up, and then you're generating revenue from that and adding the live back into it. So I think, I've spoken to a lot of Bandzoogle members and musicians in general who have admitted that out of sheer necessity, they're turning to different revenue streams online because they had to, but now they're realizing the potential of all those revenue streams and going direct to fan. And through Bandzoogle, everything's commission free, so all that revenue goes straight to the artists, and you're collecting data and email addresses and all that fun stuff that you and I talk about all the time. So
yeah, let's get into that a little. I think some artists are not even aware of your ticketing, your live stream ticketing solution that you launched. I mean, I think you actually launched it before the pandemic, but it turns out that it was the perfect thing to have. Take us through it, and how can artists who maybe haven't employed it yet use it, and what's it good for?
Yeah, so we actually had built-in ticketing already, commission free, and it was general admission ticketing. So we were seeing a lot of our members use it for like house concerts. So you sell like 40, 50 tickets and sell out a house concert kind of thing. Bless you. And when the pandemic hit and live streaming obviously took over, we added the functionality so that when a fan buys a ticket, you can add the stream link and a password if it's like a Zoom, private Zoom live stream. And so we added that functionality, and just under $200,000 from 1,300 virtual events was generated by Bandzoogle members since about mid-April, which is amazing. The fact that fans are willing to pay for these live stream experiences. And the other thing that we added that goes kind of hand in hand with live streams, not necessarily ticketed live streams, but we added a simple tip jar feature, and just commission free, Stripe, credit card, PayPal, be able to give donations directly to the artists. And the response has been incredible. And we're going to release an infographic probably later this week, if not next week, just showing all these different revenue streams and the numbers and the different types of revenue being generated since the pandemic. And the tip jar is interesting because, again, about $200,000 was generated since mid-April, but the average tip was $42.12, which is higher than we would have expected, which goes to show if you don't ask, people
don't get. Yeah.
And very quickly, we have a band that did these like Throwback Thursday live streams every 2 weeks on their Facebook and YouTube, going through their full discography, listening parties, interviewing the band members about the songwriting process. Really like a really well-produced thing, because their tour was canceled, and they generated over $15,000 in tips and sales because they would drive fans from these live streams to their Bandzoogle website with a tip jar and their store where they could buy the album, digital, physical. And so they generated a ton of revenue doing that just with a simple link, commission free on their website, and doing these live streams every couple of weeks. So we're seeing some pretty amazing things and pretty inspiring things amidst a pretty dark year for a lot of reasons, because musicians are seeing some success transition.
So explain a little bit. So basically Twitch, but with a password. What platform do you use to actually do the live stream? Like, where is the page set up?
Yeah, so that's totally up to the artist. So Bandzoogle's not in the live streaming game. We discussed a lot of things when the pandemic hit, and of course that was one of them. But as you've seen, and I'm sure a lot of people watching this have seen, the market's been flooded with different streaming. It seems like a new streaming platform reaches out to us every week wanting to partner on something. But so with Bandzoogle members, they can do the Zoom thing, of course, and Zoom's it's a whole separate thing. If you want to host it on your website, you can do it publicly, or we see a lot of ours doing it on a private page or just exclusive to their fan subscribers. So that monthly fan subscription model. So they're exclusive live streams just for those fan club members. We have integrations with for video and live streaming, YouTube, Vimeo, Facebook, Twitch, and Crowdcast. We recommend for that model of like private streaming, and if you're monetizing it through ticketing and putting it on a private link, to probably use Crowdcast, which is the most affordable solution for that. Vimeo is quite expensive. It's like $100 a month to get the live streaming option. YouTube and Facebook are doable, but it's murky whether it goes against their terms of service to do like a gated private behind a paywall kind of live stream. Like, it's unclear. You can post a pre-recorded video to your website from those services. To do the live, it's theoretically possible, but we encourage artists to be safe and use Crowdcast, and I think Twitch is totally fine as well. So we have integrations so that you don't have to embed code. It's directly integrated into our video, tip jar feature directly, and fan subscriptions feature directly, so that you can add video from those platforms with just a link rather than grabbing code.
Like a whole setup, right.
Yeah.
And I mean, a lot of artists have been asking us about OBS.
Yeah.
I downloaded it and wanted to kill myself within 12 minutes. It's, again, like, I think this pandemic has forced all of us to get better at everything, right? Here we are, we're using StreamYard, we're on every single platform. I find this platform to be incredibly easy and love it. But, when I was trying to figure out, okay, how do we multicast, just like with live streaming, there's so many options, and OBS kept coming up, but there's a learning curve and you do have to, figure out how to use it. So it's great that you can plug and play with what you've got. That's fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so I want to circle back to we know, of course, you have to keep your website updated, and that's important, and keep it alive and modern. What are some modern, I don't want to say trends, but what are some things that artists should be aware of and thinking about if they are going to get back into the back end of their website and do some tweaking and some updating for 2020 and 2021?
Good question. So, I mean, first and foremost, whatever platform you're using, or if you're shopping around for a platform, just make sure that the templates, if it's a template-based system, all look good on mobile devices, because everything's on mobile. Like, the majority of your traffic's probably going to be from mobile devices. Our templates are all responsive and look great on tablets and mobile devices. And for the most part, most platforms are, but there's still a few out there that musicians use that you have to do the pinch and zoom thing and try to, navigate on mobile, and it's just not a good experience. But so that's becoming increasingly important. It's already been important, but it's increasingly important. In terms of trends, like there's website trends that come and go, and we don't always hop on board because they're not always a great idea. But I would stick to the basics of making sure. I think the biggest piece of advice I give musicians for the websites is just make sure you have professional photos. Like, spend more money on your photography than your website, because that's going to be the first impression, unless you have autoplay music on your website, and never do that.
Right. I feel like we talked about that a lot in the 90s and then exactly. In the aughts, like, do not have autoplay. Yeah.
You'd be surprised how much it still comes up. But the first impression is usually your imagery. And so you have to make sure that those images look professional, and it's your brand, right? So as soon as someone lands on your website, they're going to judge you and your music based on that imagery. So making sure you work with a professional photographer, have a concept, that's first and foremost, because you're going to use those photos for your website, for your EPK, for your socials, for your press, everything. So it's worth the investment. The other thing is try not to do too much on your website. Like, I review a lot of websites, and one of the most common issues is artists trying to just put too much on the page. It's cluttered. There's no clear rhyme or reason to the content on the page. And so it's just simple is good. If you're not sure, keep it simple. Keep every page focused on what people would expect to find there. On your bio page, just have your bio and maybe different lengths if you want, but don't have your gig dates or a photo gallery underneath, or like your top videos on your bio page, like things like that. Just keeping it simple, keeping it structured and organized. One-page websites have become very popular. That's one trend. And in our system now, when you're building a site, you can actually choose a one-page versus a multi-page site. And I was in a talk last night with the University of Southern California, and we debated a little bit like whether that's good or bad for SEO. And I don't know the answer, but I would think that Google is looking for as much crawlable content as possible to be able to identify your website. And if you have a one-page site with very minimal content, for like, you think your bio, music, videos, photos, all on one page, you're not giving Google a whole lot of content to crawl and find you for different keywords and things like that. So it's a great looking style for sure, because it almost mimics the mobile experience, because you're just scrolling down one page more or less. But you definitely have that option. But personally, this is not Bandzoogle, this is me speaking. I prefer seeing artists build out a multi-page site, because guaranteed you probably have enough content to fill the pages enough in a clean, concise way. And that way, you're able to add your meta tags and meta descriptions for each page, rather than it just being a one-page thing. So that's one trend that is still around. But, if you're really doing a deep dive in SEO, I should ask our in-house SEO guru, Wes. He'll be disappointed I didn't get the proper answer for this before coming on. But yeah, that's one thing. And I'll never forget, like, there's always the temptation from artists to do something unique and different and creative with their websites. And I totally get it. However, your website is your business, really. Your art, your music is your art, but your website is your business. And so keep it so that people can navigate it, find the content they're looking for. Don't get too fancy with the menu names or with splash pages or some, like, people. I'll never forget, there was a band, we're doing this website demolition derby we used to do at conferences, where we review websites live at a conference. And there was a web design firm on the panel, and they said a band paid them $65,000 to do this complicated gamified website where you had to, like, beat the game to get into the website, and the bounce rate was like 99%, which means 99% of visitors just left immediately.
My God.
Yeah, there's something to be said about simplicity and just making it, easy to navigate, and don't try to get too fancy with.
That's so crazy. Yeah, I mean, and I think those days are long behind us. I mean, I do once in a while meet an artist who years ago spent so much money on a website, and I've written multiple articles about this and don't want to belabor it. But the reason why we love Bandzoogle, and the reason why we're partners, official partners with them, is mostly because ease of use. You can change it by yourself. If you really get lost and confused, Bandzoogle actually has customer service. You can send an email and say, I don't know how to add my tour dates, or, not that we're touring, I don't know how to change this or that. Yeah. They'll get back to you. Unlike a company like Wix, who are you going to get in touch with there? No one. And then if you do, they're reading a script and they're not in your home country and they don't really understand artists. So for those of you that are thinking about making a switch, I think Bandzoogle it's our favorite for a reason. And we used to have to endorse both you and Host Baby, but now you're one and the same. So I don't have to choose anymore.
Exactly. Yeah. So we last year, just a little over a year ago, we I say finally, just because I've known CD Baby for 25 years. And so I used to be a CD Baby evangelist, because they were like the first on the scene to do like DIY distribution. And Derek Sivers was in a documentary film I made 15 years ago. But I was always a Bandzoogle evangelist, because Bandzoogle is based in my hometown of Montreal. And they had the superior product always. Like, no offense to Host Baby, but Bandzoogle was always better with the technology. And it just obviously after 25 or 20 years wasn't a focus for CD Baby anymore. And we finally got together and we migrated all the Host Baby members over to Bandzoogle. So now they're all using Bandzoogle, and now we're finally able to partner with CD Baby. So Bandzoogle members get CD Baby distribution included. And we're doing all sorts of fun partnership things. And as you know, they take educating musicians very seriously with their blog and podcast and webinars. And so we're doing a lot of cross-promotional stuff and guest posting on each other's blog. I finally had a byline on the DIY musician blog last year, and I was so happy after like 20 years.
All these years.
Yeah.
They should not have made you wait that long. So we do a lot of website assessments when we're thinking about working with artists, and we look at a lot of websites. And interestingly, we normally recommend something, but then I ran into an article, I think it was actually on DIY Musician, where they kind of disagreed with our party line, and it's made me think. I wanted to run it by you. So we recommend that on your homepage, you have your social media links at the top of the page. So when you land, you can see like whatever, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, maybe a newsletter link as well. I read in this article, it was like the 5 don'ts, don't do this. And it said, put all your social channels buried at the bottom so that you're keeping fans on your website for longer, which in a way makes perfect sense. But in another way, I thought, well, if someone's like fully addicted to Instagram and they come to your website because they're looking basically to find your link, or they really want to hear your music, they come to your website to find your Spotify link. Yeah. You'd be amazed how few people actually search for people on actual platforms. Maybe it's not so good to have it buried on the bottom. What do you say, Dave Cool?
It's a good question. I think we, or I have maybe even said that in the past. I don't remember, but I would say there's a balance, and I think it's fine. We have templates that have the social icons above the header image, and we have some that are just below it, others that are site-wide along the bottom, or maybe the sidebar. I think you're absolutely right, and I think a lot of people, when they search an artist's name, your website, if you, like for most bands and most artists, just your custom domain name with some bio content. And if you're linking back to your website from your Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, it sends a message to Google that, oh, this is their primary website. We're going to put this first in results. So people Google the artist name, their website comes up first. And I think you're right. Some of those people just want to go there to find their direct Spotify page or find them on socials or whatever. And so I don't think you should bury your socials. I think it's fine to have them above the header or even just below the header. What we do advise against, and what I still see from time to time, is artists that spend the money. We don't see this so much on Bandzoogle, but artists that spend money to have their custom domain name and they have a splash page and that's it, and it just has links to their socials.
Yeah,
it's a waste of real estate because you can totally do more with your website than that. Right. But it's a kind of an extreme example. But I don't think there's any hard or fast rules, but I would say you don't want to make it so that that's the only thing people can do on your website is click away to somewhere else. But also you do want to be helpful and make it easy for people to find what they're looking for on your website, which could be your Spotify link or whatever.
Right.
So I think you're right.
Ask Mike Warner has joined us. Hello, Mike. And he made a few good points. He said, if I have to spend longer than 10 seconds trying to find you, trying to find your other links, I will lose interest. If I like your music, please make it easy for me to find and follow you everywhere. So I get it. I also think that in an attention deficit disorder culture of where you really don't have a lot of time to capture people, just to recap, Dave had, I think, an excellent recommendation, which is spend money on your photos. Make sure that when people do land on your website, and I think this is something that's in vogue and will remain in vogue, is that a photo of you or your band should be the first thing that people see. I think just like a black page with a logo. I mean, unless you have like a logo that is like a super duper part of your brand. Mm-hmm. A really good visual is so important. Yeah. Another thing that I see artists do, and I've come across a ton of articles and we've written about this pretty extensively, is the contact us. People, the industry if they're trying to contact you, what is really going to annoy them is a contact us box where they have to fill in as if they're trying to contact Target or something, right? Nordstrom, their name, and then you fill in the thing, and then there's the box. I get it, but it's really if a booker or a promotions person is trying very hard to just get you, you want to have a email address visible, or better, a link that could even pop open an email server and people can just type away. So please make your contact information easy and visible. Dudley Saunders is here. Hello, Dudley. I haven't seen you in so long. I'm happy to see you. Question. Facebook fan page versus personal Facebook page versus Facebook group in current social media environment. Okay, that's not really about websites, but
That's an Ariel Hyatt question if I ever heard one.
These days.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh God. Yes, your personal Facebook does and will get more. However, we've got major constraints with a personal page because it maxes out at 5,000. You don't have your analytics. You can't see them. I don't think the Bandzoogle private Facebook page works on a personal page if you're trying to do a live stream. Am I correct there?
Probably not, although I don't know for sure, but on my page, it should be coming from a page, I would think.
Yeah. So the Facebook group always scares me unless you're incredibly active. My experience with groups happens to be that one or two people are extremely enthusiastic about the group and they will overtake you very quickly unless you're really good at moderating your group. Oh, sorry, Dudley Saunders. I meant in terms of putting a link on your website. Which one should I put on? Great. Thank you for not making us switch this entire conversation. Dave, what say you there?
Facebook page. Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
That was easier. Although I was curious to know your answer. I thought that was a great question too, because I was curious to know what you thought, because there are many ways to slice the Facebook pie in terms of where your attention is going to go as an artist. So that was great advice.
Yeah, and I think also, I've been saying this a lot. I'm not thrilled with the weaponization of Facebook and how it's managed to basically ruin democracy. So not my favorite platform. But again, I think we all as artists and musicians have to make a distinction that promoting on any social channel is here for a reason. And you can go into what you don't like about things. Yes, I get it. But this goes back to your website and why it is so important to have a website. As Dave said, it is your business. It is your real estate online. It is your owned piece of the internet. And it is your opportunity to own it, Googleize it, and make it so that is where people should find you and should come to you. We have a question. Does Dave still think word of mouth still carries weight?
With promotion, I guess, with online promotion?
Yeah, do you want to clarify for us? That would be...
The short answer is yes, always. Yeah. Because, like, for instance, I'll get bombarded, not so much anymore, but I used to get bombarded with new music, and especially at conferences, and and that's fine. It's all part of the hustle of being an artist. But I have a few trusted friends, and when they recommend an artist to me, I stop what I'm doing and I listen, because I trust their judgment. And that's what we're seeing. That models what we're seeing with playlists on Spotify. Like, you get to know certain playlisters, and they have great taste. Like, I'm gonna follow this playlist because I really like what this curator is, adding. So I think the short answer is absolutely. Even in the digital and streaming world, I think word of mouth is just as, if not more important, because as consumers, we're being hit with so much content. There's so much music out there. Yeah. So when we do get recommendations, the word of mouth ones from our trusted circle, it could be friends, could be family, could be other people in the industry, who like shoot you a quick text being like, hey, I just heard this artist, you need to check it out. I think that still holds weight.
And I want to kind of add to that too, because I think something happens. Well, first of all, that whole model that Dave's talking about, it does come from someone we both admire deeply. It's Seth Godin. And he talks often about being remarkable. And being remarkable means that someone says, hey, I love Bandzoogle. It's really been a great platform for me. You should use it too. And you bring your friends along for the ride. So, and I think when an artist or musician is truly remarkable, you see the momentum happen. And, you can't resist noticing. Like, I love this so much. I'm bringing people along because I admire it so much and I'm enjoying it so much. However, there's something I want to add to that. Your fans, most of them, unless, I mean, I remember in my early 20s and kind of up till about 30, 32, 33, when people started having babies, all I did and all I talked about was music. And I worked at a record store and I worked at a record label and I ran a PR firm that only served musicians. So I was like in the nerd category for this, right? I think we get older and a lot of us just listen to what we used to listen to through our college years and maybe a little beyond, and then we kind of get stuck. So if you have a fan base that is a little bit older, I think an enormous and amazing thing to do is to nudge them and say, hey, do you like my music? You must. Here you are on my mailing list, on my socials, checking me out. Would you mind sharing my music with some friends? And another way that you can couch that is become your own curator. I find artists are so busy worrying about like what playlists are going to get on and, you know, who's going to pay attention to me. The power of Spotify and all of the platforms, Apple, that allow you to make playlists is make your own playlists and put artists that sound like you admire, you've toured with, you've opened for, you live stream with, you hang out with, you live with, whatever it is, and share that and say, hey, if you like my music, Fabrizio is on from Italy, Fabrizio Parolini, incredible artist. He makes beautiful piano music. It's instrumental, kind of like an Olafur Arnolds, that kind of George Winston vibe. He could create an incredible playlist and put himself amongst the giants. Okay, Mike Warner chiming in. Yes, own it. You are the curator and you can place your own music. And don't forget to do this on every DSP, not just your favorite one. So not just on Spotify, but of course you have access. Mike, can I do that on Amazon? I'm not even sure. I need to have you back on to do an Amazon tutorial with us. And then you can share that on your Bandzoogle or on your website. Like, it's a great talking point. Hey, check out this this playlist.
Absolutely. And with speaking of word of mouth, I mean, it just dawned on me, like Bandzoogle as a company wouldn't be where we are without word of mouth. I mean, we're a small company. We were founded 17 years ago by a musician. We've never taken venture capitalist money. We have no angel investors. It's all been bootstrapped from day one. And we've grown thanks mostly to people. I saw Danielle Taylor is on live. Hey, Danielle from LA. She's one of our members who every time I'm at a conference and she's around, she's preaching about Bandzoogle to musicians, unsolicited. And we have a lot of members like that just love the platform and love what we do and tell their musician friends. And that's how we've grown as a company. So to this day, in 2020, it absolutely word of mouth. Without it, we wouldn't be where we are. So we're passionate about what we do, and that hopefully reflects in when people interact with us, and then they take that and go, oh, if you're looking to build a website, use Bandzoogle. So yeah, that just dawned on me now that word of mouth has been super important to us as a company, even.
Yeah, and to my company as well, Cyber PR. People have a good experience and they recommend you, just like with music. So, but you have to make it easy for people to do that. So that would be something. I read many years ago an article that I have since included in one of our most popular blog posts, which is the Musician's Guide to Effective and Affordable Websites, where it said that a wonderful place to put your newsletter sign up box is on your bio page. Because interestingly, people come often to your website, they want to read more about you, find out more about you, they read your bio, and then they're there hanging out. It might pique their interest, and they might sign up for your mailing list right there after they've taken a little bit of a deep dive. Do you have any statistical evidence about that, or want to add to that, Dave?
No, but that makes total sense to me, and that's great advice. And we we definitely encourage artists to make their email sign up their main call to action on their site, which can be constant on every page of the
Yeah, it
site.
can be a pop-up, right, on every
Your
page.
pop-up or in the header or on the sidebar, like it's always kind of there. But having a bio page makes complete sense. I mean, I think, that's definitely homepage, contact page, bio page is a good one to have it. Collecting that data, I mean, it's so important. And we're seeing the artists that are having the most success selling music and selling merch and getting donations and their fan subscriptions on Bandzoogle are the ones that do use email marketing, because it's still, if you're looking to drive revenue, having that focused list of super fans that want to hear from you, sending them a dedicated email saying, here's what I'm up to, click here to buy or view or, attend the live stream or what have you. It sounds crazy, but with all the other tools out there, email is still one of the more important ones to keep in that marketing mix, and having the email collection on your bio page makes perfect sense, especially for new fans that are just discovering you and they're like, oh, I want to keep up to date with what this artist is doing. So I think that's great.
And I think also in that pop-up box that Dave's talking about, I mean, inviting people to join a newsletter is like nobody wants another newsletter, right? And Cheryl Engelhardt, who is, in our space, and I think a brilliant guide, and teaches a lot of artists about how to write drip series for emails. She says, never call it your newsletter, call it your email list. And I agree with that. You really want to reframe it in your mind. I think when we write total tune-ups for our musicians, which are long-term marketing plans that we design at Cyber PR, the area that we receive the most resistance is in the email list. It's time to revamp your email list. It's time to add people to your email list. It's time to really dig in and think about how your email list is being sent. And I think part of the reason why musicians and artists hate focusing on that area so much is they don't like to receive emails from other artists and musicians.
Yeah.
Right? So something like goes off in their head. And there's another thing that I think is at play too, is like, you don't want to annoy people. And somehow, because other artists' emails annoy you, you think you're annoying your fans. I invite you to reframe that if you would like to have some financial success. And consider that your email connection to your fans is, like Dave said, it's the place where you're going to make money. It is, if you know how to ask right. Mm-hmm. And it's also the place where you can deeply, deeply bond with your fan base. Yes, it's nice to post on Instagram with a filter, but what's the bond there? I mean, yes, maybe you'll write something very significant on a Facebook post, which no one will see unless you pay to have it boosted. But you have to remember, email is still the place where you can have these much deeper conversations.
Absolutely. I'm on the mailing list for Mark Maron's WTF podcast, and he writes these essays every week, and I read them every week because that's how I keep a connection with his world, and it's awesome. And there are artists that do it too, but that's one that popped up.
That stands out. Yeah, another one that stands out, a podcaster who's not an artist but someone who I deeply admire, is Jocelyn Glei. She is the Hurry Slowly podcast, which is all about sort of taking a breath and not getting wildly overwhelmed. Her newsletters. So first of all, everybody go sign up to Mark Maron and Jocelyn Glei's newsletter if you want to see two people who are masterful. One thing that Jocelyn does, she adds a level. She adds artwork by artists that she admires. So it's very visual. It's got paintings, and she adds other articles, which is something Jesse Kirschenbaum from the New Agency has a weekly, it's an industry newsletter called Bits and Bytes. That's another great one to look at. He curates the best music industry and music tech articles, but he also, just like Mark Maron, he starts it with some of his thoughts about what's happening in the business. Then he goes into different articles. There's no reason why musicians can't up their game. Imagine if you featured another artist that you admired deeply. You started with an essay or a thought or something amazing that's happening in your life. And then you segged into, oh, here's my playlist that I'm sharing. What if you just made a newsletter that was so awesome that people couldn't wait to get it, instead of doing the usual, like, hey, I have a live stream, click here, or hey, I'm coming to your town, or hey, I have a new album out. Like, that isn't going to captivate people.
Yeah.
So
random thought. What do you think? So with email versus social media, like, I wonder if part of the reluctance of keeping a regular newsletter schedule is you don't get that instant gratification, like the likes on the Instagram. You see the likes popping up and on Facebook and the comments, and because email, you kind of send it off into the void.
Right, except you do, and then it's disappointing because maybe 10% or 20% will open it. But think about it, like 1% are looking at it at Facebook. I mean, unless you're boosting everything. So I think I agree with you on that. And also, you're in the mix all day. You're not like, it's hilarious because you are checking your email all day long, probably spending more time checking your email than you are checking your Instagram feed, but yet you're completely resistant somehow. Which is a little questionable. But yes, talk to me a little bit about the Bandzoogle email platform. I know you've had some changes on it over the years and you've modernized it. Are you able to send drip campaigns through Bandzoogle at this point?
No, and so it hasn't totally been updated yet. It was on our roadmap, and then the pandemic hit. And so Stacey Bedford, our CEO, who's incredible operator and had a beautiful roadmap laid out for the platform. Day one of the pandemic was like, well, we got to throw this out. And we started building out tools that were super, super relevant for generating money. And email definitely is. It's just such a massive project.
Right.
For our team, because we're going to tear it down and build it back up. And there's a lot of requests that have built up over the years. And I'll be the first one to admit, it works. And for basic, just sending out emails to not your newsletter, but to your fans. Don't want to call it newsletter. Totally works. We give you all the data from it. It's great. But if you really want to get at the drip campaigns and autoresponders and different actions, then you'll probably have to plug in MailChimp and have a MailChimp collection on your Bandzoogle website. And that's totally fine. You can totally do that. And then use MailChimp for those more advanced email marketing techniques. And I've talked to Cheryl tons about this. She's the first person I'm going to pull into a webinar once we launch the new mailing list features on Bandzoogle to have her talk about email marketing. But we're not quite there yet, and hopefully we'll get back to our roadmap that was previously planned very shortly. But up next is going to be more e-commerce focused. You're going to see a lot of changes in the back end, making it a little bit more visible and easier to take certain actions to sell music merch, launch fan subscriptions, launch crowdfunding, all that direct to fan commerce stuff. I think is coming up next.
Right. Okay, we've got a couple questions, and then we're going to get thrown off of IG Live, and we can continue on Facebook and Twitter for a couple of minutes, but we also have to maybe respect that Dave has, a job. First of all, is there a happy median regarding engagement? The reason I ask is I follow a band that I like a lot, but at times I feel love bombed and kind of cringe. So is there a happy medium? I think you just answered your own question in the question, right? If it feels overwhelming, you might want to look at that model and go, okay, maybe let's do less of what they're doing because it's too much. Although I had a really great IG Live a couple of weeks ago with Heather May, and she communicates with her newsletter a lot, and created an entire community. So I think you really have to judge, if you're cringing, judging on your opening rates and how much money people are paying you and all of that, maybe not everybody's cringing. And I think also one thing that is weird about newsletters in general, which we're not calling newsletters, we're calling email communications, is you send one out and, okay, 20% open. If you're lucky, it's 20%. But then you can also see the horrible news, which is 20 people unsubscribed, or 30 or 40 or 50, or I just did a giant promotion with Michael Walker and a couple hundred people unsubscribed from my mailing list. And that's okay. That's okay. Like,
It happens.
Yeah. So don't worry about that.
As long as you're gaining more than you're losing, and then you might have to evaluate what you're, not in your case, but just for everyone. And we have to do that too. I mean, we send out our, weekly or every couple of weeks to our members, and we look at those stats, and we see what topics, like, oh, a lot of people unsubscribe from this one. Maybe our members aren't so interested in that. So we'll watch out for that in our data. But looking at that data is super important.
Right. Okay, next question. Do you at Bandzoogle provide sales analytics based on genre? Meaning merch?
We don't, based on genre. So the analytics of Bandzoogle are specific to the artist. Like, we're not a platform that curates, like, and has data across genres, like a Bandcamp, like an online store, record store kind of thing. So it's each individual artist account has their own analytics for their own store. So yeah, you get your website stats, you get your music stats, store purchases, email list, all that data, location, where your fans are. You can see on a heat map, like, where your music streams and downloads are coming from, in a pre-COVID world and, post-COVID world, Bandzoogle members were using those reports to, and in combination with your Spotify data and your social data, of course, putting all that together to get a better picture of where are your fans and where can I go tour and play gigs where I'm going to have a concentration of fans. So yeah, we supply that data in the reports tab, for sure, but not across platform and not by genre. It's really each individual artist is their own account that gets their own data.
Amazing. All right, we are going to have to stop. Of course, now all the questions are coming in, but we're at the end of our time with Dave, who so generously gave us 48 minutes. Okay, so Dave, how can everybody find you online? If people want to sign up to Bandzoogle, I would like to offer you Cyber 15. We'll give you a free month of their service using our code. We get paid, they get paid. We love it, they love it. And
you get a discount, 15% off your first year. So that's money saved, and you get the free trial, of course, to try it out first.
And if people have questions or they want to do more of a deep dive for working with Bandzoogle, where should they go, Dave?
Bandzoogle.com, talk to our support team. They're online 7 days a week. Go to our blog. It's something I spend a lot of time on, lots of great advice on the blog. But if you want to learn about Bandzoogle, just go to the website and talk to our support team if you have any questions.
Thank you so much for your time. I could talk to you for hours.
I know.
Everybody go revamp your website. Please hit Bandzoogle at Instagram and all the platforms. Show off your sites to them. They love to showcase artists. They repost all the time. I'd love to hear from you as well. Kayla will be back here tomorrow at 5:30 with a very, very special guest who got over 500 placements on film and television, and he will be revealing his secrets. And I'll be back next Tuesday with a very special guest who I haven't confirmed yet, but you will know soon. All right, everybody. Have a great rest of your day.
Bye, everyone.